So my favourite chocolate bar, one of my favourite chocolate bars, Dairy Milk with Oreos. It's got a new rendition. Dairy Milk Big Taste Oreo Crunch. It's basically like a cheesecake, an Oreo cheesecake in chocolate. It's incredible. That's all I've got to say. That's not even sponsorship. It's just so fucking good. Greetings and salutations, my beautiful people. Welcome back to Caddy's Film Fridays, where we talk about films and films happen. And today we're going to be looking at I usually get more than one take to do that in all the other videos where I can do the whole twisty box thing. Yeah, there we go. Lady in the Van. Not a film I would usually talk about. Not kind of this kind of thing. Never saw it in the cinema. I wanted to see it. Maggie Smith's a badass, so was wanting to see it. Never got around to it. Saw it when it came out. Decided to pick it up straight away. And I gotta say, yes, it's not the kind of movie I would usually want to go and see or would want to talk about on this channel, but after seeing it, it was very enjoyable, a little bit flawed, but a very solid, very enjoyable, and very British movie, if that makes any sense. And it is a little bit flawed, but it does have a lot of strengths, and it's a great movie in its own right. It's not pretentious or anything, it just works as a really good movie in its own right. And before I talk about it, no need to flee, this is spoiler free. Okay, so the story in this movie is actually based on a true story, and it's a story that Caddycarus knew about. Well, I think she did anyway, but I didn't. I have no idea, never heard about this true story whatsoever, and the film is obviously mostly based, it says mostly a true story at the top there, a mostly true story, because obviously you're going to dramatise and add a few things here and there, or there'll be memories that are corrupted or whatever from whoever wrote it. But anyway, the story centres around a very, very famous British media personality, well, I say media personality, playwright, poet, very, very talented writer, Alan Bennett. And it's basically about how, at some point in his life, a lady in a van called Miss Shepherd, who everyone knows her by, basically just ends up living in his driveway in this van for about 15 years, and it's like, it actually happened. Like, what? So just hearing about that made me want to go and see this movie straight away. But the way that the story is told, it's told in a very interesting way. It's narrated by Alan Bennett, as in whoever plays him, the guy that plays him. He narrates the story as he remembers it from the real Alan Bennett's memoirs, if you see what I mean. But what's happening is that in the film there are two Alan Bennetts, you see. There's a storytelling one, and the one that's actually doing the stuff that the story is unfolding. And the storytelling Alan is always sitting in a chair at a desk, writing down his thoughts on what he's seeing. So it's almost like his mind is in two different places. His story writing and career mind is in his house, watching the real Alan Bennett doing all of this ridiculous stuff with a woman that's living in his driveway. And it's a very interesting way to tell the story, and also Alan has to interact with himself. He talks to himself, and not just figuratively, literally, he's talking to himself. And it is a really cool way to tell the story, I thought. And I think I'm going to be a little bit more... but I've noticed that these videos have been a little bit too rambly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep kind of looking at my phone for all my... notes. This is why I ramble. There's just so many notes. It's like, I'm just gonna kind of keep looking back and forth and try and get a little bit more to the point. But anyway, so what do I like that's good about this movie? First of all, like I just said, the way it's told, it works really, really well. It's narrated very well in a general speaking sense. It's very well written narration as well. And the way that Alan talks to himself is not only cool for how the story is portrayed and explained, but also it's very cool with seeing him struggle with the other version of himself. It's like he's constantly in battle with himself as he tries to figure out ways around his kindly and timid nature, and he's struggling to figure out where his priorities lie with his work, and if he should be focusing on one old lady that's completely innocent, not a part of his life, and is just a weirdo that's living in his driveway in a van, or should he be more safe and profitable talking about his mother, who is in a much worse situation in a mental state, but has actually got him into the West End by talking about her through memoirs and stuff. And there's all these other things going on. There's like the moralities as well as the career aspects and everything like that. And the way that, like I said, the storytelling Alan is writing the story for the future, for the film, I suppose you'd say, or for the memoirs that were really written later on, as he's seeing the whole situation unfold and then writing it all down. It's very cool. It's very blatant, I suppose, but it is very cool. Blatant in the sense of like, oh yeah, this is actually a version of Alan making mental notes. Literally, it's a mental note version of himself. But it works really well because that's not all the storytelling Alan has to do with the plot. He also tries to talk sense or argue with the real Alan in the story, you see. So there's he's arguing with himself, and it's kind of hard to explain without seeing it exactly, but basically the storytelling Alan that's in Alan's head, he's not only writing and making mental notes as the story he's watching unfolds, but he's also trying to argue with himself and justify what he's doing and figuring out where he wants his life to go and everything. It's quite clever. It's also surprisingly very funny. I wasn't expecting this to be a comedy, and I wouldn't say it was a comedy at all, but it had a lot of funny shit in it, really funny jokes. It wasn't hilarious, but it was very bitingly witty, very tightly scripted. And there are loads of jokes in it, and loads of visual gags. This is something I love in films, when they do humour like this. Visual gags that you can easily miss. Like, there's a scene when the lady in the van comes in. Miss Shepherd, sorry, I should refer to her as Miss Shepherd. Miss Shepherd comes into the house, Alan's house, sorry, and she just invites herself in. And then she's walking around and touching everything, and as Alan notices she starts touching things, he grabs some newspaper and throws it onto a seat that she's near about, just in case she sits down. And again, it's not one of those jokes that is made very apparent. It's just a very tiny little detail that's thrown in, and you can easily miss it. It was also a superbly acted film. It was so well acted. Keris was mentioning how as soon as the man that plays Alan Bennett, sorry, I forget the name, I'm gonna look at the back of the box, Alex Jennings, I apologise. As soon as Alex Jennings starts talking, his accent and his mannerisms and the voice and everything, apparently Keris said he nailed the real Alan Bennett, like, to a T. And Maggie Smith is obviously, it says on the front of the box, I couldn't agree anymore, Maggie Smith is glorious. I love if you could take that out of context and it would be Lady in the Van, based on a true story. Maggie Smith is glorious. It's not even really a review, really, or any kind of quote about the film. It's just Maggie Smith is cool. Fuck off. Anyway, but she's glorious. She's so good in this. There's just so many subtle acting chops, and she does lots of awesome things. She makes scenes that would usually be very predictable or cliche, but she works with them in such a way that makes them really memorable and really, really well done, actually. Like whenever she's telling stories about her past, or there's a scene when she rediscovers a piano and she hasn't touched a piano for decades, and she loved to play piano. And obviously this is a spoiler-free review, but the scene when she rediscovers piano playing, again, like I said, it would usually be maybe in other films a cliched, predictable, boring waste of time, but the way that it's edited with what's going on elsewhere, and the way that all these other little, it's the subtle acting chops. It's the way Maggie Smith works the scene. She's given the premise of the scene and she makes it her own. It makes it very damn deep. It makes it a deep scene. And of course Alex Jennings, the way that he deals with some of the situations in the film which would usually be seen in other movies as predictable or cliched or whatever, as soon as a moment you think like that is going to appear, the way that his character reacts to the situation is not only completely grittingly realistic, yeah, well, it is. It's just really realistic, and it's believable, and it's not trying to convey a certain emotion or make you go, you should be happy, you should be sad, you should be angry to the audience. It's just him reacting in the most realistic way possible, bearing in mind what his relationship is like with the other characters. And there's even bits I love, like there's a bit where there's these two random idiot thugs that start trying to shake up Miss Shepherd's van while she's sleeping, for no reason whatsoever, and he comes out just to make sure that everything's okay. He's not looking for a fight, and then as soon as they get in his face, when he comes up to say, like, what the hell are you doing, it's the very, very subtle way that they get right in his face, and then he, for a split second, looks like he's gonna have a heart attack, and then moves his head back, but then goes straight back in again after realizing, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but I'm back into it. it's little acting bits like that that make some of these scenes. And as far as the plot elements go, yeah, I've explained the story premise to you, and that's pretty much what it's about. It's just about these 15 years that Miss Shepherd knew Alan and everything that happened around that. That is pretty much the premise of the movie. But there are many, many mysterious plot elements, loads of mysterious plot elements, and they're present there, but they're not directly explained. That's something else I quite like. It keeps you questioning and guessing from beginning to end. Everything from what Miss Shepherd is actually really like. Is she all in the head, or is she playing everyone for a fool? How did she get to this position in the first place? And how the hell is she ending up with new cars and new TVs and stuff like that? And it's all woven into the plot really, really well. And even if, like, some of these questions are never really properly 100% answered, such as where she keeps getting the new stuff from, the point is it happened. And the thing is, nobody really knows how it happened, but it's based on a true story. It did happen. And there are the eyewitnesses accounts and everything, so it did happen. How it happens, though, obviously nobody knows, so the movie doesn't spend too much time gloating about these questions and being very blatant about, like, well, how did that happen? Oh, I guess we'll never know. No, it's not like that. It's just something that the characters around Miss Shepherd have to deal with. Most of the questions are answered. There are one or two that are kind of left to, like, wow, what the fuck? And I like that. It doesn't work in lots of other films, but it works in this one just because of how bizarre the story is in the first place. And as some of the other plot elements are, like, brought into the story in a very mysterious and dark and twisted way, and then unfolded and woven in absolutely beautifally, and then comes full circle at the end, there are also all the darker elements to the story, like, who are the men that keep visiting her? What are they doing? And like, there's the religious background to Miss Shepherd as well, and where did that come from? Where is that going? Why is she... There's so many good questions and so many awesome plot elements and mysteries thrown into such a simple premise. It does keep you guessing, and most, like, if not all of the plot elements are wrapped up really well. The main ones, anyway. And what I love is that you're not forced to feel a certain way about the characters in the film. Like, the arseholes that live down the street that Alan's living down. I mean, the thing is, you initially see them when they come onto the screen, you think, well, they're just dickheads. But then, at the same time, are they? It's easy in a movie like this to just point fingers at them and say, okay, well, they're going to be the antagonists, or they're just going to be the arseholes, or, good thing we're not like that. But the thing is, they are still relatable. They are realistic, they are relatable. They're not even necessarily bad people. They're just reacting to the situation, and I'm sure many people in the audience can agree that they would react the same way as they do. Miss Shepherd, for instance, even though the movie is about her, really, like, no matter... no matter... I've had a cough for weeks, it's driving me nuts. No matter how different the emotional tones each scene is going for, she is still a completely mad fucking dickhead. She's horrible. She's a horrible woman, and you're never meant to feel anything for her. You're never thrown into a situation where you kind of think, oh, bless her. No, she's horrible. She's cantankerous and rude. And yeah, she's frail, and she has many scenes later where you kind of do feel for her, but they're not scenes that make you feel for her just out of the blue. This is after the relationship and understanding you garner with the character in the movie, and then you kind of think at that point, oh, maybe how do I feel about this? But the film doesn't force you to feel anyways. It doesn't throw stupid music at you to make you, or like dramatic rain or anything. It doesn't make you feel any particular ways towards the characters. It's however you want to react. And to be honest, the way that the other characters react to more emotional moments in the story, the more hard-hitting emotional moments, the way that other characters react to, especially Alan, they're not even conventional reactions to any other kind of blockbuster Hollywood movie that you would see from Hollywood. Sorry, that was a sentence that made no sense. But it's just, yeah, you're often completely with the other characters on every situation. There's no unrealistic portrayals of anything here. And this is all great, but yes, like I said, this is kind of a flawed movie. Some of the things I didn't like. First of all, the introduction to the film. It's not very long. It's about 1 minute, 2 minutes long. It's not that much. It's not bad. But it didn't need it, and as far as I'm concerned, it kills the other mysterious plot elements, and it doesn't work with the other characters, who don't know about why she's scared of the police or whatever. I'm just going to say this right now. This isn't spoiler territory because this is literally the beginning of the movie. You see Miss Shepherd in her van with blood on the windscreen, a cracked windscreen, escaping from the police. That's the first thing you see. And that's fine, I guess, and it set up the story nicely. But then the thing is, all the other characters later on in the story start then thinking, well, why is there a crack in the windscreen? And why is there a crack in the windscreen? And why is she scared of the police and blah 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 blah. And that not only is completely redundant and pointless for the audience because we already know, so the fact that you're asking and then never find out the answer is completely fucking pointless and ridiculous anyway. But also, yeah, so it kills the mystery, but also it makes everything in the future events of the story seem quite unrealistic. Well, some of them anyway, because, like, in the beginning she's escaping from the police. And to escape the police, she just drives into a country lane and the police drive right on past her. And then only realise that she drove into a country lane, and they gave her plenty of time to reverse out of the drive and then fuck off down the road. And they get out the car and then follow straight after her, and then that's it, they lose her. And how they lose her, I have no idea. She wasn't going too fast, but it just made the police seem completely useless, and it never... I just don't think you needed the intro. It would have been cool to just have her introduce herself to the street with the blood and the crack on the windscreen, and then and then that is another mysterious plot element that could work its way into the story. But no, instead, everyone knows about it from the beginning. And it just seems quite unrealistic compared to everything else that happens in the movie, because how the hell did the police not catch her? It's not portrayed in a very good way. It just makes the police look completely lazy and useless. Also, another little nitpick is that obviously you've got 15 years worth of history to, condense into a 90-minute, however long it is, movie. And, but the time transitions, the way they're done, I didn't really like. They're very jarring, and very unclear, and it wrecks the flow a little bit. You never know how many years pass in between each transition. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a few days, sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 10 years, and it's never really that clear. Yeah, you see the other characters aging, so you can kind of get an idea, and it's obviously just based around the most important elements to what happened during her stay in Alan's driveway, but still a few more smooth transitions wouldn't have been nice, because some of them are so jarring and it makes no sense. And 1 second Miss Shepherd will be walking and the next she'll have a walking stick, all of a sudden, or she'll be in a wheelchair or something. It's just so jarring and very unclear and very unnaturally flowing. But yeah, apart from a couple of those flaws, a couple big, a couple kind of nitpicky and small, apart from those few flaws, it's still a very solid, very enjoyable, very good movie. And on the recommendation scale, I'd have to say I would highly recommend it. And I've also got to say, just to wrap this entire video up, that the ending, without spoilers, I'm just going to say, the ending is fucking brilliant. It is such a good ending. Again, it's like you have the narration and you think it's going to end in a particular way and it's going to be cliched and predictable. This movie is very good at making you think it's going somewhere and it doesn't. And you think it's going to be doing this, it's going to be all quiet, but instead it ends very originally, probably the funniest bit of the film is the ending. And it ends so perfectly for the tone the movie was going for. It couldn't have ended any better if you ask me. Again, I won't say how it ends exactly, but for what the characters are like, and what everyone's been going for, and obviously the tone of the movie, it just ends so well. It's weird to explain. The subject matter and bearing in mind all of that stuff, it just ends so well. And again, in other movies where the ending for this would have kind of been maybe predictable or something, and they could have gone a very safe route, instead they go completely bonkers, batshit insane. It works brilliantly to the film's advantage. It's funny, it's touching, it's so good, and it wraps up the story of Miss Shepherd, her inner struggles, and the inner struggles of Alan Bennett as well, absolutely seamlessly and perfectly. And again, I won't say anything more. I will just say it's one of the best endings to a film I've seen in a long time. But yeah, it's a very, very good movie. So yeah, highly recommend it. And I'll see everyone on Sunday. So if it's your birthday or watching this video, happy fucking birthday to you. Please remember to stay beautiful, take care, and farewell everybody.